Thank you. Morning. You know, ever since I was a little kid, I've always had a fascination for doing the impossible. Today is a day I've been looking forward to for many, many years, because today is a day I'm going to attempt to do the impossible right before your very eyes, right here today at Union Chapel. In my day job over at Interlink, as Jeff said, I get to do the impossible every day and change the world by impacting the lives of orphans and people over in Kazakhstan, halfway around the world. But on the weekends, I get to kind of fulfill my childhood dream of being a superhero and flying around the world doing superhuman feats and saving lives. In my quest to do the impossible, I found there are two things that are universal among people around the world. Everybody has fears and everybody has dreams. If you think back when you were a little kid, you probably had big dreams of some sort, probably had some kind of fears. So I'm going to take you on my journey today from fears to dreams, from words to swords, from dodgeball to Superman to mosquito, from fearing what's possible to actually doing the impossible. On October 4th, 2007, my heart was racing, my knees were shaking as I stepped foot on stage at Sanders Theater at Harvard University to accept the 2007 Ig Nobel Prize in Medicine for a little medical research paper I'd co-written called Sword Swallowing and Its Side Effects. It was published in a little magazine I'd never heard of before called the British Medical Journal. For somebody like me, that was an unexpected surprise, an impossible dream come true, an honor I will never, ever forget. But it wasn't the most memorable day of my life. On October 4th, 1967, a scared, shy, skinny, wimpy kid stepped out in front of his class. His heart was racing, his knees were shaking as he opened his mouth to speak. He got sick to his stomach. He was terrorized in tears, paralyzed in panic, frozen in fear. That scared, shy, skinny, wimpy kid had extreme fears. He was afraid of the dark, afraid of heights, afraid of spiders and snakes. Any of you afraid of spiders and snakes? Yeah. Afraid of water and sharks, afraid of doctors and nurses and dentists and needles and drills and sharp objects. But more than anything, he was afraid of people. He suffered from low self-esteem, inferiority complex, and something we didn't even know that you could sign up for back then, something called social anxiety disorder. That scared, shy, skinny, wimpy kid was me. Because I had fears, the bullies would tease me and beat me up. They used to laugh and call me names, never let me play in any of their reindeer games. There was one game they used to let me play in, dodgeball, and I was not a good dodger. The bullies would call me names, and I'd look up and I'd see all those pink dodgeballs hurtling at my face at supersonic speeds. Bam, bam, bam. And I remember many days walking home from school. My face was red and stinging. My ears were red and ringing. My eyes were burning with tears. And their words were burning in my ears. And whoever said, "Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me," it's a lie. Words can cut like a knife. Words can pierce like a sword. Words can make wounds that are so deep they can't be seen. So I had fears, and words were my worst enemy. But I also had dreams. I would go home, I'd escape the Superman comics, and I wanted to be like Superman. I wanted to be a superhero. I wanted to fly around the world doing superhuman feats and saving lives. I wanted to fight against villains in kryptonite. And I would also read Guinness Book of World Records and Ripley's Believe It or Not. Any of you guys read Guinness or Ripley's? Yep. I had a fascination with things that were real. I saw real people doing real feats. And I vowed if the bullies wouldn't let me play in their sports games, that I wanted to do real magic, real feats, something really remarkable with my life that the bullies could not do. I wanted to find my purpose and calling. I wanted to know that my life had meaning. I wanted to do something really incredible with my life and change the world. I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to prove the impossible was not impossible. Fast forward 10 years. It was the week before my 21st birthday, and two things happened in one day that would change my life forever. I was living in Tamil Nadu, South India, as a missionary, 20 years old, And one of my mentors said, do you have thrones, Daniel? I said, thrones? What are thrones? He said, thrones are major life goals, like a cross between dreams and goals, like a bucket list. If you could go any place you wanted to go, do anything you wanted to do, be anything you wanted to be, where would you go, what would you do, who would you be? I said, oh man, I can't do that. I'm too scared. I've got too many fears. That night I went up on the roof of the bungalow, took my little rice mat up there and laid out under the stars, watched the bats dive bomb for mosquitoes. And all I could think about was thrones, what I wanted to do before I died, and dreams and goals and those bullies with the dodgeballs. A few hours later I woke up. My heart was racing, my knees were shaking, but this time it wasn't with fear. My entire body was convulsing. And for the next 5 days, I was on my deathbed fighting for my life, my body convulsing, my brain burning up with 105-degree malaria fever. And when I was conscious, in those few moments of consciousness, I couldn't get this out of my head. All I could think about was thrones, what I wanted to do with my life before I died. Finally, on the night before my 21st birthday, I came to a realization, in a moment of clarity. I realized that little tiny mosquito that had bit me 10 days before, Anopheles stevensii is the name of the mosquito. Well, it wasn't that particular mosquito, but that little mosquito that weighed 5 micrograms, less than a grain of salt, if that could take out a 170-pound kid, then I realized that mosquito was my kryptonite. Then I realized, no, it's not the mosquito. It's even smaller than that. It's the little parasite that lives inside the mosquito, Plasmodium falciparum, that kills over 1 million people a year. Then I realized, no, it's even smaller than that. But to me, it seemed so much greater. I realized fear was my kryptonite, my parasite, that had crippled and paralyzed me my entire life. And you know, there's a big difference between danger and fear. Danger is real. Fear is a choice. And I realized I had a choice. I could either live in fear and die a failure. I could just give in and die that night. Or I could change my life. I could face my fears and take on risks and challenges and dare to live. You know, there's something about being on your deathbed and facing death that really makes you appreciate life and realize, and take on a new appreciation for life, I guess. I realized everybody dies, but not everybody really lives. I decided I wanted to live. So that night I prayed a little prayer and I said, God, if you let me live till my 21st birthday, I will not let fear rule my life. I'm going to put my fears to death. I'm going to change my attitude. I want to take on risks and challenges. I want to do something remarkable with my life. I want to know my life has meaning. I want to leave a legacy. I want to do something incredible and change the world and prove the impossible is not impossible. Now, I won't tell you if I survived until my 21st birthday or not. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. But that night I made my list of my first 10 thrones. And if you want to see them, you can go to thrones.com. But I made the first 10 thrones, and that was to visit all the major continents of the world, visit the 7 wonders of the world, learn a bunch of languages, live on a ship, live on a deserted island, live with a tribe of Indians in the Amazon, work with a circus, work in the music business in Nashville, climb to the top of the highest mountain in Sweden, see Mount Everest at sunrise, and jump out of an airplane. Now, over the next 20 years, I checked most of those off my list. I still haven't seen Antarctica. Got a couple other places to go. But I checked most of those off my list. And for the next 7 years, I lived on a little deserted island in the Bahamas by myself, loincloth, thatch hut, spearing sharks and stingrays to eat. From there, I moved to Mexico and Pujo Pungo, Ecuador, in the Amazon rainforest. I worked in the music business with Gaithers over here in Alexandria, and then in Nashville for years, and then in Stockholm, Sweden, where I went to climb Mount Kebnekaise, the highest mountain in Scandinavia, high above the Arctic Circle. Last year, I got to see Mount Everest at sunrise. It was awesome. I worked with circuses. I learned clowning, juggling, unicycle riding, stilt walking, glass eating, fire eating, bed of nails, all the circus stunts. And in 1997, I heard there were less than a dozen sword swallowers left in the entire world. And I met a sword swallower. I said, give me some tips. He said, it's extremely dangerous. 29 people have died doing it. Don't try it. So guess what I did? I added that to my list of thrones. And I started practicing, and I practiced 10 to 12 times a day, every day, for about 4 years. I calculated that out to about 13,000 unsuccessful attempts before I got my first sword down on February 12, 2001. And I set a throne to become the world's leading expert in sword swallowing. So I researched sword swallowing, networked all the sword swallowers together into the Sword Swallowers Association, did a 2-year medical research paper on sword swallowing that was published in the British Medical Journal. And I found some fascinating insights about sword swallowing, more than you probably ever wanted to know. But I'm going to tell you a couple of them today. The one thing the discovery that really amazed me was how sword swallowers learn to do the impossible. And really, simply, it's just this. Don't focus on the 99.9% that's impossible. Focus on that 0.1% that is possible and figure out how to make it possible. Now let me take you on a little journey into the body of a sword swallower. In order for me to swallow a sword, what I have to do is I slide the blade over the tongue, repress the gag reflex in the cervical esophagus, navigate a 90-degree angle down the back of the throat, find the proper alignment into the epiglottis, flip open the epiglottis, slide the blade down the esophagus, repress the peristalsis reflex, the 22 pairs of muscles that swallows your food, slide the blade between the heart, down, nudge the heart aside, between the lungs, and nudge the heart aside, go through the breastbone, past the breastbone, through the diaphragm, relax the lower esophageal sphincter, slide it past the liver and kidneys, down into the stomach, repress the retro reflex in the stomach all the way down to the duodenum. Piece of cake. If I were to go further than that, all the way down to my fallopian tubes. Just kidding. Guys, if you don't understand that, ask your wives when you get home. People always ask me, they say it must take a lot of courage to risk your life, to nudge your heart, and to swallow a sword. But no. What really takes courage is for that scared, shy, skinny, wimpy kid to risk failure and rejection, to bare his heart, to swallow his pride, and stand up here in front of a bunch of total strangers and tell you his simple story of his fears and dreams. To risk spilling my guts, both literally and figuratively. You see, I've always wanted to do the impossible, and now I am. I always wanted to do something really remarkable with my life and change the world, and now I am. And it's not with the sword swallowing. It's with Interlink and being able to change the world over in Kazakhstan. I always wanted to be a superhero and fly around the world doing superhuman feats and saving lives, and now I am. And you know what? There's still a small part of that little kid's big dream deep inside. But the most important thing is I always wanted to find my purpose and calling in life. I wanted to find out what God wanted me to do, why he put me on this planet. And now I found it. And you know what? It's not what you think it is. It's not with the swords, my strengths. It's with my weaknesses, wielding my words. You see, my purpose and calling is to change the world by cutting through fear one sword at a time, one word at a time, one knife at a time, one life at a time. My purpose is to help others find theirs. What's yours? What's your purpose? What's your calling? What were you put here to do? I believe God has a purpose for each one of us, that he's got a reason for you to be here today. I believe God's called all of us to be superheroes. What is your superpower? I bet if you look around this room, you wouldn't realize, but there are superheroes in this room right now. They may not be wearing the socks. But how many of you have gone to Kazakhstan before with Interlink? A bunch of you. How many of you would like to do the impossible and go change the world, go to Kazakhstan and change the world, or change the world here in Muncie? You can do the impossible. What are your thrones? If you could go any place, do anything, be anything, where would you go? What would you do? What would you be? What is your legacy that you want to leave? What is your sword? Your double-edged sword of fears and dreams. Swallow your sword, whatever it might be. It's never too late to be whatever you wanted to be. For all those bullies with the dodgeballs who said I'd never be able to do the impossible, who said I'd never amount to anything, I've got just one thing to say. Thank you. Because without villains, there wouldn't be superheroes. I'm here to prove to you the impossible is not impossible. This is extremely dangerous. It could kill me. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to need your help on this one. No, I need everybody's help on the counting part, okay? If you know the words, count with us, okay? Thank you. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Actually, thank you from the bottom of my stomach. I told you I was going to do the impossible today, and now I've done the impossible, but this wasn't it. This I do every day. The impossible thing was for that scared, shy, skinny, wimpy kid to cut through fear, to stand up here and to change the world one sword at a time, one word at a time, one life at a time. If I've made you think in new ways, if I've made you believe the impossible is not impossible, that you can do the impossible in your life and help change the world, then my job is done and yours is just beginning. Thank you. The impossible is not impossible. Put an H on that. It's him possible. Thank you.